Hi everyone, and my name is Justin, and welcome back to Hymn Spotlight. It's a mini-series dedicated to learning more about the meaning and history to some of the great traditional hymns of our past. And there are some hymns in our tradition that seem to transcend time, and over that time, they may develop a legacy that imparts a new meaning to a song than originally intended. There is a powerful and transformative effect that time can have on hymns as they are passed on from generation to generation and from culture to culture. This next hymn is a great example of this phenomenon. Some identify with this hymn as a gospel song, a folk song, an American spiritual, a children's song, or an influential civil rights anthem. In fact, the origins of the hymn itself are not well documented and are still largely debated. So this is the history and significance of the hymn, This Little Light of Mine.
Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Even though the hymns we have covered so far have been very well documented in history, this is not the case with all of the popular traditional hymns that we sing today. In the case of This Little Light of Mine, many hymnals and songbooks attribute it as an African American spiritual, or simply traditional. A spiritual is a kind of song associated with Black Christians of the southern U.S., and are thought to be the combination of European hymns and African musical elements by Black slaves usually. Reverend Daniel Harper describes his research of the history of the hymn in his blog, and he writes that the hymn can be found as early as 1941 in the second edition of the Lift Every Voice and Sing African American Hymnal, where it was attributed as a traditional Negro spiritual. On the other hand, other sources give credit of the hymn to white hymnist Harry Dixon Lowes, who wrote and composed it with Avis B. Christensen in 1920. Authors such as Ace Collins describes that during Lowes' study at the Moody Bible Institute, he was struck by the significance of light in the New Testament, and light became the inspiration to the melody that carried the feel of a spiritual. Though written in 1920, it wasn't until days before the World War II that churches began adopting the song as part of children's Sunday school programs, and within a decade, Lowes' song was translated into scores of languages and sung all over the globe. Now, as wonderful as that story may sound, Collins provides no sources for these assertions. Harper also notes that the earliest attribution of the hymn to Harry Dixon Lowes isn't until the late 1930s. So Harper concludes that in the absence of any firm answers to the questions, such as, did Lowes indeed write the song? And if he did he compose it, or did he adapt it from an American spiritual? Or, if Lowes did indeed compose the song, how did it become associated with African American tradition? Without answers to these questions, the best attribution for the song would be simply unknown. Now, does the fact that the hymn may have an unknown origin diminish the quality or impact of This Little Light of Mine? I would say not at all. The hymn has been adopted not just by churches and believers of all ages, but also in the secular world as a popular folk song. The inspiration for the song is purported to be Jesus' remarks to his followers in Matthew chapter 5, verse 14 to 16. And that reads, "You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill could not be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." One of the earliest known versions of the hymn has 3 verses that simply read, "This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Jesus gave it to me, I'm gonna let it shine." The catchy and simple melody in C major makes the song extremely modular, with artists writing renditions with a multitude of different verses, often improvised right on the spot. And this easy to pick up quality of the hymn has made it a popular song for children, but perhaps even more influentially, an anthem for civil rights. National Public Radio's Eric Deggans, as part of the American Anthem series, describes This Little Light of Mine and its rise as an anthem for civil rights. And he shares that once the song was popular, it belonged to everyone. And as the civil rights movements grew in 1950s and 1960s, singers changed the lyrics to reference their struggles, and these new versions were known as freedom songs. You could say that songs like This Little Light of Mine became non-violent weapons of protest, defying oppression and telling oppressors that their hopes and spirits would not be put out. Singing This Little Light of Mine made those who sang it feel less alone and a little more free. This was the enduring power of this hymn. And even if most associate this hymn outside of the context of its original intention, whatever it was, the legacy that it's developed will forever be carried with it from today and into the future. And the same can be said with other freedom songs such as Sing Hallelujah to the Lord, sung in Hong Kong, where spiritual songs are used as powerful weapons against oppression. A hymn's meaning and significance can and will evolve over time. Robert Darden, a professor at Baylor University, when asked why This Little Light of Mine has survived for so long, he simply said that those who sang it claimed that the song was anointed. And as an academic, Darden said that he had no way nor want to refute the claim. It's my pleasure now to introduce Esther Kong and her husband, Pastor Lawrence, and 3 children, Zach, Sophie, and Levi, to lead us in their rendition of This Little Light of Mine. And also a thank you to Esther for suggesting me to cover this song. As usual, I encourage you to please share the stories about what this song means to you, and I want to thank you for listening.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little